Well, to discuss this now, I'm joined from Augusta, Georgia by Han Park. He's the founding director of the Center for the Study of Global Issues. In Medford, Massachusetts, we're joined by Sung-Yoon Lee, a Korean Studies professor at Tufts University. And in Washington, D.C., we have Bruce Klingner, who's a senior research fellow in Korean and Japanese affairs at the Heritage Foundation. Gentlemen, good to have you back on the Newsmakers. Sung-Yoon Lee, let me start with you, Professor Lee. Is that hope cycle now over and everybody's going to lower their expectations?
I don't think so. We have seen Donald Trump, uncharacteristically for an American president, play hard to get vis-a-vis North Korea. It was last May 24th, when unexpectedly President Trump wrote a discourteous letter to Kim Jong-un calling off the scheduled first ever summit between the leaders of the two nations in Singapore. But the very next day, President Trump said, well, if it happens, it will be on the same date in Singapore. And a few days later, he confirmed that he would go ahead and hold a summit meeting. So I don't think this is a change in the status quo. I'm pretty sure Kim Jong-un was set aback. He was taken aback, quite surprised by this. And I think he pushed a bit too hard. Kim was trying to sell the same horse three times now, the Yongbyon nuclear reactor. And according to President Trump, asked for sanctions relief in their entirety, full sanctions relief. Even President Trump, who is moved by an impulse to make history, I don't think that was an acceptable proposition to Donald Trump.
Han Park, was Trump right to walk away when Kim Jong-un said, we want all sanctions lifted?
I think what Trump did was a tactical maneuvering. I don't think he's disinterested in denuclearization or in Kim Jong-un. I think the talks at some level, if not the highest level, will continue. Yeah. What North Korea wants is not really complete removal of all sanctions. What it wants is peace treaty. Without peace treaty, it will never honestly relinquish its nuclear ambition. So it's still a long way to go, but there are low-hanging fruits that they have to work at, and that is the exchange of liaison offices and U.S. military training jointly with South Korea. And there is also a number of different smaller things they can achieve. So I think the approach top-down was not very effective.
Bruce, why go through all the effort of going to Hanoi and conducting these talks, having the big press conference, and then walking away? Or was that designed from the very beginning?
I don't think it was part of a grand plan ahead of time. I would have preferred having things discussed at the envoy level so that it didn't appear to have a major collapse. I think this kind of differences between the U.S. and North Korea would have been better found out, behind the scenes rather than in front of the curtain at such a high level. But I think President Trump did the right thing. I think when North Korea refused to move beyond Yongbyon only, which the one area I disagree with Professor Lee is that this is the 5th time it's been promised, and then seeking too much on a sanctions relief, I think the president did the right thing. I've been very critical of his policy on North Korea, but today I think was a good day.
At the heart of all of this, Sung-Yoon Lee, Yongbyon, 400 buildings, allegedly peppered over almost 4 square miles. They produce their nuclear weapons there. Is it ever possible that the North Koreans would even think about dismantling it?
Well, they did freeze it between 1994 and 2003, and then again between 2005 and 2008. So the facility has been frozen, temporarily shut down in the past, and it's an old facility. I mean, it would be, I guess, one step forward to shut it down once more. But when North Korea has uranium enrichment facilities, forging ahead, churning out uranium at full speed in several undisclosed locations, one step forward should be judged by 2 steps backward, and that outside the strange sphere of nuclear diplomacy vis-a-vis the DPRK, where every attempt, every effort is rewarded with a participation award, that would be considered lack of progress or even failure in other realities.
Han Park, who makes the next move now?
And I think it has to be the United States. North Korea, they clearly know what they want. They will never relinquish their nuclear weapons without peace treaty. That's the bottom line. America is not prepared to even discuss about peace treaty and maybe some other things. I think we should expect the administration in Washington to work on lower hanging fruits and that can be accomplished, and then move up. The complete denuclearization, we should expect that should come at the end rather than in the beginning.
Bruce, okay, let's get a response from Bruce. Sorry to interrupt you. So Bruce, give them the peace treaty first and then they'll dismantle the nukes.
Well, I think the lower branches have all been picked pretty clean. I think right now the ball really is in North Korea's court. It's North Korea, not the U.S. or South Korea or Japan, that's in defiance of 11 UN resolutions. So I think everyone was taken aback by today's events. And North Korea, as Professor Lee said, I think thought they could get another U.S. president to pay for the same horse again, with being Yongbyon only. So I think we cannot remove sanctions or reduce sanctions until the triggering activity has been eliminated or reduced. So I think right now it's up to North Korea to show that they're willing to move beyond a Yongbyon only deal. I disagree on a peace declaration. I see it as a meaningless gesture that certainly North and South Korea are pushing for. But as South Korean officials have emphasized, it's a political issue of document. It's a diplomatic document that will have no impact on the real world. And there are a lot of inherent risks in it. It further undermines international resolve to enforce required sanctions. And it also could be a slippery slope on the security side of calling for premature removal or reduction of U.S. forces. A peace declaration should be avoided. We should work towards a peace treaty as we were doing in the six-party talks. But it has to include conventional force reductions to remove or reduce the North Korean threat to South Korea.
And shifting gears a little bit from diabolical weapons of mass destruction to diabolical actions and treatment of human beings, I want to ask you, Sung-Yoon Lee, about what you think of how Trump responded to the questions about Otto Warmbier's death, because I guess it might be revealing as to his view of human rights and pushing the North Koreans on human rights. So he says he trusts Kim Jong-un, that he didn't know anything about it. Kim Jong-un didn't know that the guy was tortured and killed and so on. What does that say about Trump, this administration, and how far or high up the agenda the human rights of North Koreans and other people are when it comes to striking a deal?
So President Trump, we all heard, say that he believes Kim Jong-un, who purportedly told Trump that he feels bad about the death of Otto Warmbier, didn't know about it. Well, President Trump also has said he trusts Putin, he trusts the Saudi Crown Prince, he trusts others. Kim Jong-il, in 2002, when the Japanese Prime Minister was visiting him on September 17, 2002 in Pyongyang, told the Japanese Prime Minister that, oh yes, there have been some rogue elements who abducted Japanese nationals in the past, but I didn't know about it. Earlier in history, in 1973, the prominent dissident Kim Dae-jung was gagged, blindfolded, was about to be dumped into the sea by the Korean CIA, the South Korean CIA. Purportedly, Park Chung-hee, the president, didn't know about it. So, I mean, it's not credible. And the fact that President Trump used the word, it's rough there in the prison camps.
Right.
Again, after Singapore, when he said, when asked the question about human rights, it's rough, you know, it's really rough over there in North Korea, but it's rough everywhere. It shows you that human rights is not a priority for the administration.
Han Park, is that a mistake? Yeah, you have an opportunity. You have an audience with Kim Jong-un. Call him out. Say, you need to close the gulags. You need to stop doing this to people. Why not? If the US president can't do it now, who can?
even if Kim Jong-un was told by anyone, including American president, he will not be able to implement all these things because who is in power in North Korea? Collectively, the Korean Labor Party, the Communist Party is in firm control. Even Kim Jong-un does not make all small, concrete decisions. So that it's not really the facilities at Yongbyon or nuclear bombs, how many there are and so forth, destruction of these will not matter as long as there is a mutual hostility, mutual distrust. The level of distrust on the part of America and Americans on North Korea is extremely high. We have succeeded in demonizing North Korea some decades. It has to work toward de-demonization. Otherwise, things will not work very.
But Professor Park, I mean, yes, North Korea has been demonized a lot of the time unfairly. Yes. But when North Korea is doing horrendous things, isn't it an opportunity during these talks to call them out on it and to say, well, this needs to change if you want to be admitted into our circle of friendship?
Yeah, there won't be a case that Kim Jong-un said he did not know, wasn't aware of. I believe that because at that level, is specific concrete things. In fact, North Korea never expected Wonbyo to die. They are saying some other stories, but I don't think Kim Jong-un is going to be included in the circulation of information regarding that. So we have to realize North Korea is a political system, imperfect political system. North Korean control system is entirely different from other dictatorships in that the dictator has all kinds of authorities and power. But Kim Jong-un is not like that.
Bruce, was it a mistake not to push on human rights?
We have to include human rights in the dialogue for several reasons. One, it's the right thing to do, but also, obviously, North Korea is interested in reducing U.S. sanctions. Well, there are legal requirements that North Korea must do according to the North Korea Sanctions and Policy Enhancement Act before the U.S. president is allowed even to suspend sanctions for 1 year. Some of those requirements are related to human rights, so there are legal requirements. Also, I think in the pillar of improving relations, we may be able to have an exchange of liaison offices, but we can't go to full diplomatic recognition and embassies as long as North Korea is conducting, as the UN Commission of Inquiry report concluded, crimes against humanity unseen since Nazi Germany. So if North Korea wants to reach full diplomatic relations, they're going to have to take steps to improve their human rights.
Very finally, Sung-Yoon Lee, when Kim and Trump are up there on stage, whether in Vietnam or in Singapore, it's seen as Kim and the world. In the context of this, it's Kim meeting with the world and engaging with the world. There are all sorts of actors with buy-in here, the Chinese, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the IAEA, and so on and so forth. Is it, I guess, wrong for Trump to be the representative of everybody else when he's having these meetings with Kim?
Well, he's the U.S. president, the president of the most powerful nation on earth, but it's Kim who's stealing the show. Trump has been playing really a supporting actor role to the main actor, which is, of course, the formerly weird, cruel-looking dictator now whose smiles flashing and affable and reasonable and reform-minded. You know, on this notion of peace treaty, I've always been curious. Why would North Korea, a nation that has flagrantly violated both the letter and spirit of every single international agreement that it has signed, why would it so obsess over another paper agreement? Well, maybe that's a question best left for philosophers to ponder on. But, you know, to the casual secular observer, a possibility strikes me. Perhaps it's because in doing a peace deal, an agreement or treaty, there are strategic advantages to be gained, as there were definitely for North Vietnam in the wake of the January 1973 peace treaty, the Paris Peace Accords with the U.S., which compelled the U.S. to withdraw troops, abandon the South, and allow the North to march in and complete the communist revolution.
Understood.
Maybe that's something that's on Kim Jong-un's mind as well.
Something to mull over. Listen, gentlemen, I have to move on, but it's been a pleasure. Very finally, referring to his private conversations with Kim, Trump said, boy, if you could have heard that dialogue, what you would pay for that dialogue. I'd be fascinated to hear or read the transcripts. Thanks so much, Han Park, Sung-Yoon Lee, and Bruce Klingner. Always a pleasure having you on the Newsmakers.